So let's look at multiplying and dividing surds. Across the top I have the rule. So square root of a times square root of b equals the square root of a times b. Square root of a times square root of a equals the square root of a squared, which is just equal to a because the square root and the squared cancel each other out. And then the square root of a divided by square root of b can either be written as the square root of a over the square root of b or the square root of a over b. Which way you go really depends on what you've been given. So if we look at the first one here, square root of 2 times the square root of 12, there are two options. First option, I can just go square root of 2 times 12, which is a square root of 24, but I would then have to simplify it. So I know 4 times 6 is 24, so square root of 4 times the square root of 6, which would be 2 root 6. My other option is to simplify my square root of 12 first. So the square root of 12 is equal to the square root of 4 times 3. So that's the square root of 4 times the square root of 3, which is 2 root 3. So I can come back and go, okay, I've got the square root of 2 times by 2 root 3. So my number stays at the front. And then I go the square root of 2 times 3, which is 2 root 6. Okay, so I'd probably recommend simplifying first because that will make it easier to do the final answer. Okay, so you could end up with some huge numbers. So in the next one, I've got 4 root 3 times 5 root 7. So in order to do that, look at your numbers first. You've got 4 times 5, which is 20. Then you have the square root of 3 times the square root of 7. So times by 3 times 7, which is going to be 20. Square root of 3 times 7 is 21. And you have to think to yourself, can I simplify that 21? No, I can't, so I'm done. In the next one, square root of 6 times square root of 10. Neither of those have a factor that's a perfect square, so I would go straight to being the square root of 6 times 10, which is the square root of 60. From there, I think to myself, okay, what's a perfect square of 60? Okay, you might need to go to your calculator and start dividing by perfect squares. I mean, in my head, I think I go 4 times 15. So, knowing your times tables is very helpful. So square root of 60 is the square root of 4 times 15, which is square root of 4 times the square root of 15, which is 2 root 15. Okay, so that answer is 2 square root of 15. Next one, square root of 21 divided by the square root of 7. Now I know 7 goes into 21, so my best bet to do this one is to write it as a square root of 21 over 7, and 7 to 21 is 3. Square root of 120 over the square root of 10. Now I know 10 goes into 120, so I'm going to write that as a square root of 120 over 10, which then becomes the square root of 12, because the zeros can just cancel, dividing top and bottom by 10. Now square root of 12 can be simplified. That's equal to 4 times 3, which is a square root of 4 times the square root of 3, which is 2 root 3. In the next one, there are two things happening. I have to look at my numbers, and then I have to also look at my surds. So let's look at our numbers first. We've got 4 over 8. So 4 into 4 is 1, 4 into 8 is 2. So I know I've got 1/2. Now square root of 45 over 5, 5 goes into 45. So I'm going to write it as 45 over 5. And I know that 5 9s are 45. So that's going to be 1/2 square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. So it's 1/2 times 3. So that is 3 over 2. Let's look at some more, because different approaches may be required when dividing. So square root of 200 over 2. The 2 isn't square root, so I can't just divide 200 by 2. And I've got nothing else I can do unless I simplify the square root of 200. So if I look at the square root of 200, it can be written as the square root of 100 times 2. Square root of 100 is 10, so I've got square root of 100 times the square root of 2. So that's 10 root 2. So if I come back, I've got 10 root 2 divided by 2. And now I can go 10 divided by 2 is 5. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm left with 5 root 2. Okay, with the next one, I can't do anything with the 5 or 6, so it really looks like I can't do anything. So what I'm going to have to look at is that square root of 20 and simplify it. Now it's probably easier, as I've been doing, to do it off to the side. So square root of 20 is equal to the square root of 4 times 5, which is the square root of 4 times by the square root of 5, which is 2 root 5. So if I come back now, I've got 5 times the square root of 20, so 5 times 2 root 5, all over 6. I can look at my numbers. So I've got 5 times 2, which is 10. So I've got 10 root 5 divided by 6. 10 and 6 can be divided by 2, so 2 into 10 is 5, 2 into 3 is 6. So I'm left with 5 root 5 all over 3. With the last one, square root of 16 over 9, I can't divide because there's nothing that goes into both 16 and 9. But I could split it and go square root of 16 divided by square root of 9. Square root of 16 is 4, square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so your approach really depends on what you've been given.